This is Media Week.
Hello and welcome to the program. Ahead, APN News and Media CEO Michael Miller on a year marked by a series of sales and acquisitions. Plus, we'll speak with AdStream Managing Director Peter Miller on how to get closer, presumably, with advertisers. First, though, let's take a look at some of the big stories of this week with guest host and Media Week editor and publisher James Manning. Good afternoon, James. Good to see you.
Hi, Nadine.
So you were at the Newspaperworks Future Forum this week. Lots of heavy hitters, not only from Australia, but from right around the world.
Yep.
But I'm curious to know, was the now infamous Crikey article that leaked News Corp results from 2013 a real hot topic of conversation there today?
It was, but not really officially. It was more people, chatting before the actual forum started this morning. In the breaks, people chatting about it, And it's still a big deal on social media. People, commenting, got their opinions. Julian Clark did reference it briefly in the chief executive's round table, if you like. He talked about it. He said, look, he didn't have much to say about it. He said what he told the staff. It was figures that were 14 months old. The company was, going in a different direction now. Things are looking a lot brighter than that document, the picture that document painted. And he said he's not particularly troubled by what was published.
But admitting that there are headwinds for the business and word that News Corp is now threatening legal action, do you think it would be in News Corp's best interest to let this one lie, to not stoke and fuel the flames?
Yeah, look, I think that's usually what happens, when they look at they weigh up all the pros and cons of taking legal action, pursuing it. It usually doesn't happen, they'll just decide to move on. But at this moment, they're pretty angry, they're just not really happy with what came out, the angles that are being taken, using that as the basis for stories. It doesn't tell us things we didn't know. We knew the Australian was losing quite a lot of money. We've talked about that a lot on the show. News have sort of detailed how much they're saying, what they're doing to fix that, and they're making some inroads there. We know things like the Herald Sun make the company a lot of money. For media people, it's interesting seeing all that detail. It's just endless pages of spreadsheets, with everything you could imagine. But but not good.
Speaking of results, reporting season in full swing. Massive loss for Southern Cross Media. In and amongst all of that, though, James, was there a highlight there?
Yeah, well, that was. I guess you pull out all those significant events, the one-off things that sort of swayed them into the red. They were making a trading profit around $70 million, which is, considering the negative press they've had ever since they lost Kyle and Jackie O, and it has impacted on their revenues, the troubles in television where they're Ten's affiliate. We all know how Ten's struggling in the ad market. So it's probably, they're probably not in a bad place. They've been saved a little bit by the Triple M network, which is going well. Selling a lot of advertising off that. They're working hard to rebuild that Today network, which is Today FM and Fox, B105, those stations around the country. They think they're making some progress there. They're very hopeful about next year. They've set a quite a short, they really want to get this back on track within 12 months, which is a pretty big ask in radio. So it will be interesting to watch how they go. I was keen to ask them about Hamish and Andy, who are out of contract now. So they're talking about having them back. They would like them on air a lot more than they are at the moment. They just do an hour syndicated show in the afternoons.
And we'll talk about APN News and Media a little bit later in the program, both with our Market Cross IG Markets and also because, of course, you spoke with the CEO today. Let's move on, though, because we've got lots of other news around. Seven securing another big event with the Brisbane Commonwealth Games. So what exactly does it get in that basket? Yeah,
look, it's cost them $43 million. They've got all the TV rights, free-to-air, subscription, plus all the digital rights, so online, mobile, and the soon-to-be launched HBB TV, which is sort of gives the free-to-air platform its own little sort of subscription business, if you like, which is sort of depends how they want to run it, but just lots more channels, lots more options of engaging with their audience. And coming up when they have those Com Games in 2018, there'll also be Winter Olympics that year. They'll have the Australian Open. So if you're looking for big events, Seven will be the place to go.
CEO Magazine has named its finalists this year for the CEO of the Year, of course, and two media people,
Kieran Davis from Australian Radio Network. He's having a very good year. He'd be hard to beat, I think, and Simon Ryan, the boss of Curra in Australia. Davis, the Sportsbet actually running a book on this, and Kieran Davis is the almost unbackable favourite at the moment.
Sportsbet does run a bet on pretty much anything. Any sort of new media appointments this week? What's happening in the space?
Yeah, we just talking about Southern Cross Media. Another chief financial officer, Nick McKechnie, Peter Lewis, was in there recently, only lasted a couple of months. Decided, look, it wasn't the place he wanted to be, so it's their third CFO in under 12 months. So let's hope he stays and likes the job. And from Nine, Scott Briggs, who looked after the corporate work for Nine Entertainment Company, is moving across to Fox Sports.
Yeah, and speaking of, you're in New Zealand this week. MediaWorks getting a new CEO. What's the deal there?
Yeah, that's very interesting over there. Mark Weldon's come on board. The company's been through virtually in receivership. Rod McGeoch from Sydney's been chairing the company. Seems to be getting it back on track. They were talking about trade sale. The speculation now will ultimately be floated perhaps sometime next year.
Now, you're a man that gets around in New Zealand, speaking with a lot of the heavy hitters there. Also today, as I mentioned, at the Newspaperworks Future Forum today, where James caught up with APN News and Media CEO Michael Miller. And James began by asking about the results and, in particular, print.
Michael Miller, you find yourself at the Future Forum the day after your results. We'll talk a little bit about the newspapers today, but the company in general, I mean, you're heavily invested into radio now. You're sort of backing out of outdoor a little bit. What's the status of print within the organisation?
Print is still a large part of our earnings and a big part of our future as well. I think we've seen a good year in print. We've seen far better year-on-year results in terms of what we released yesterday. Particularly pleased with really focused on our local communities. Our circulation and audience levels have held up, and if you're at digital, have grown year on year in both sides of the Tasman, and as well as our local revenues in both Queensland and in New Zealand are relatively flat year on year.
So yeah, the chief executives on the panel this morning, there seemed to be a fair bit of optimism. So you're not just talking the market up, there is some real signs of improvement there for you guys?
Yeah, I think while you've got an audience, you've always got a future. And to say that audience across more platforms has grown, not just for APN but for all publishers. Yeah. And I'm really encouraged by, as I say, by local revenues. We do have challenges amongst agency revenue. Agency revenue for the first 6 months was down 7% in New Zealand and down 1.5% in Australia. So it's not just a newspaper challenge, I think it's an industry challenge where agency revenues are going, but newspapers as an industry need to do more to win back some of that lost revenue.
We've been in the audience transition to digital for some time now. Are you seeing anything in the trends that can lead you to think, look, there'll be a levelling out, there'll be a platform where print will stay, or is it still too early to call things like that? And I guess at different things, I mean, it's different for the New Zealand Herald, I guess, and then for your regional newspapers, isn't it?
Oh, it is, and different markets have different outcomes. But again, I'm encouraged by recent results out of the US market. If you look at the US market as a whole in 2012, they saw as an industry circulation revenues grow by 12%. In 2013, a further 9%. And that's really a combination of introduction of digital subscriptions, but also the bundling of digital subscriptions with print. And the recent Fairfax results also indicative that strategy is working.
Selling digital subscriptions in regional markets a lot more of a challenge?
No, I think in fact it's even more easier in many ways, because in terms of local content, newspapers are the leading source and in often cases the only source of local content. And that I think of the Gannett Group in the US has shown great success, which are the largest publisher of regional newspapers in the US market, and particularly I said the Santa Fe, in the New Mexican and Santa Fe, a circulation of 24,000. They have 13,000 digital subscriptions in only 18 months.
So it's a less competitive space, you're saying, I guess.
It's a less competitive space, not just for other media, but particularly local content. And that's what I think newspapers are really focusing on doing well across all platforms, and that's where I think there's some optimism.
What about getting advertisers interested in your digital output? Are you sort of having much success there?
Yes, we've seen a 30+% growth in digital revenues in our Queensland papers, and that's come from better bundling, I think better skills amongst our sales team, introduction of programmatic selling and joining those platforms. So I think we've definitely learned a lot over the past 12 months, and that the results are starting to come through.
I've just had a couple of days in New Zealand. There seems to be some good integration in the company there. You flick through the New Zealand Herald and you'll see lots of other parts of your business being promoted. So it seems to be working well. That's a relatively new sort of innovation.
After the acquisition of the radio network in February this year, we were in a position where we could start to integrate the company more closely together. So we appointed in May Jane Hastings as the CEO across all of our New Zealand businesses, being outdoor, radio, digital and print, and that already we've seen the establishment of a management team, and that the response from both agency and our direct clients has been very positive, that this is a different conversation that we're having. We're finding ourselves on very different briefs.
It's a little bit harder in Australia, isn't it? The businesses you can't quite promote too well your radio stuff into the regionals, or was that not absolutely correct?
Already we're seeing some integration for advertisers amongst our outdoor and radio assets. In the Queensland market, we've now seen co-location with some of those businesses with our newspaper businesses, and that really providing a Queensland market solution across radio, outdoor and print is a different conversation we're only just starting to have. So it's probably Queensland's the start of a journey, but it's very much our intention is to become a leading media company in a growth market of Australia.
Yeah, I note your comments about the market at the start of this interview, but Starcom MediaVest have had a pretty depressing outlook, if you like, for the second half of calendar 2014. What are your salespeople telling you?
The market is very short. At this stage, to give guidance on the final quarter would be near impossible and maybe foolish. I talk about newspapers having an agency revenue issue. I think agencies have a revenue issue too, and that they're probably seeing what we're seeing, that their clients are spending on their own platforms, in their own loyalty programs, and that's not money coming through agencies, and that's not giving them the confidence that about their business model, or about more broadly mass media models as well.
APN News and Media CEO Michael Miller there. Coming up on Media Week, Peter Miller. He's the MD of AdStream, and he'll tell us how to get closer. Plus, a preview of 7 West Media results. We'll be back in just a moment.